Hey, everybody. It's the Santita Jackson Show. I'm Santita Jackson. I'm finally here, running like crazy today. But I'm so glad to be with you today here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. It's a joy to be with you, everybody. Like and subscribe, and please share the show. Like and subscribe, and please share the show. And let us go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please become my friend there. Become my friend. But I need everybody to like the show. Go to X, which was Twitter, at Santita J is my handle. I need you to really to join us. And thank you, Ashley from Memphis, for joining us. And let me see, Bernadette. There's a great remix of Bernadette by the Four Tops on YouTube that I've just fallen in love with. Oh my goodness. Andre, how you doing? Sending you all so much love. Everybody, please like and share the show. Like, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. In the second hour, I'm going to be talking with Cornel West. Dr. Cornel West, yes, he is still running for president. Want to talk about what he sees, why he's still running, the statement that he hopes to make. We don't have a binary choice in this election. I think it's fair only Ariel Gold to tell the facts. The fact is, I want people to vote first. That is my wish. And I want you to have an open pathway to voting. While I've made my choice, I respect all choices. I respect all choices. There's a special place in my heart for Dr. West because I feel him holding up the bloodstained banner. He's holding on to issues, 10 toes down on issues that are closest to my heart, and I think of the hearts of most progressives. And if he were not in the race, our voices would not be heard, I don't think, not as clearly, as sharply as they're being heard through him. And so I'm grateful that he's going to be with us. But right now, let's talk about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. This 2024 race is shaping up to be, no pun intended, quite the horse race. In fact, the question is now that even with the debate, that the majority of people believe that Kamala Harris won. She was fantastic. She really was. And it's very interesting because her particular strength is not, say, being extemporaneous, which is what a debate is. But no matter, she did it and she did it beautifully. That having been said, people are still, um, the race is still tied. And her camp, they are open to another debate. Will that make a difference? What will make the difference in this race? So I want you all to let us know what you think. Come on, Morning Stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends. Well, that's on Facebook, but on YouTube, please go to the Santita Jackson Show and let us know what you're thinking. I want to know what your thoughts are because there's a lot at stake here, and clearly, there's some people who are yet to be convinced. Tio Hardiman, violence interrupters, want to know what your thoughts are. A leader here in Chicago, and of course, he ran for governor some years ago. Again, getting our voices out there, our issues, putting them in the gubernatorial debate just where they needed to be.
Yeah.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, he oversees all the black folks in that part of the world and that part of the legislature. And we need to vote because you got to do these down ballot races, everybody. It is in his legislature that you determine who goes to Washington. It is in your legislature that we decide who's going to be president. And of course, one of the key states is Texas. I want to know what you see. Of course, um, someone who's making a whole lot of noise, this community psychologist, watch what you say, everybody. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, Ariel Gold, the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Yes, we do need to come together. And of course, Attorney Darrell Jones, who slipped away from his seminar as he's trying to get our young people to vote and know how to do it. I want you to conduct one of those seminars here, quite frankly, because voter suppression is real, everybody, but no one's talking about it. While we're making history, many of us are being first from the voter rolls. Isn't that ironic? But let's talk about this, everybody. Let's talk about this race. What do you make of it? Did the debate make a difference? Well, some people are saying that there was analysis in the Washington Post that said no, not necessarily. Didn't necessarily make that much of a difference. So I want to know what your thoughts are. You tell me. I saw Debbie Dingell, the congresswoman from Michigan, She said, of course, she was elated. State Representative, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. She was elated was when she got a chance to talk to some of her constituents because she was like, "We won this debate hands down." And she said, "But when I was talking to my constituent, it blunted some of my enthusiasm. It didn't take it away, Ariel, but." She said it brought me back down to earth. It let me know that there's a lot of work to be done because a lot of people have yet to decide for whom they will vote. While the game did change a bit on Tuesday, it was not completely changed. Because remember, Kamala Harris is still a new candidate, at least in the presidential piece. So let's talk about this. I mean, and she did struggle in 2020. I mean, but she's learned a lot, I'm sure, in these past 4 years. Clearly, she has. That having been said, what I want to know, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, I mean, because you are talking with your constituents, you're in Washington at the Congressional Black Caucus weekend. And Washington is its own bubble. We're clear on that. And everybody there is excited. But when you go back home, you hear a different story, Tio. It's like when you start talking to people one on one in the barbershops, in the beauty shops, walking in the grocery stores. I was with my doctor a little bit earlier, and early before that, I ran to the store. There were people in the store who were asking for money
Hmm.
in the grocery store.
Okay.
And that's what was heartbreaking. And then there were people outside of the grocery store. There were people out, I mean, I have I met someone for breakfast. They were standing outside of the restaurant. They were standing outside when there was another group standing outside when I came back out. And people are in a lot of pain out here. Let us be very, very clear. So when you hear people struggling with their vote, they're struggling with a lot of things. And I think we have to really be empathetic because there, but for the grace of God, would we be without health care? Would we be without a home? Would we be, what, food insecure? No, hungry, not knowing where your next meal is going to come from, if you're ever going to get one. People are digging through trash. So, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, let's begin with you. Um, we had what we saw on television, but you're also talking with your constituents. And you also have a tremendous race down there. I mean, Ted Cruz could lose his seat to, was it Colin Allred?
Congressman Colin Allred. That's correct.
Unbelievable. I mean, whoa. Just real quick, a snapshot of that. If you all don't think that voting is important, this race, Daryl and Ariel and Dr. Latrice and Tio, it's tighter than this.
Hmm.
I mean, if all the press reports are correct, yes?
It is razor thin. Texas is really in play. Ted Cruz is the most unpopular U.S. senator in the country. He is a MAGA extremist. He's out of touch with the regular voters of Texas, even moderates and many country club Republicans. They disavow his extreme policies. He doesn't believe in exceptions for rape or incest. He is one of those people that has been a champion for the NRA with no common sense gun reforms after we had so many massacres. Y'all saw what happened to those 19 children and two children at Uvalde. Ted Cruz needs to go. So this is a real race. When Beto O'Rourke 4 years ago was very close to beating him, he came within a few points of actually defeating Ted Cruz. And so this race is really in play. And I'll tell you what, Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, she made this race even more plausible that he can win. And
Hmm.
so, Santita, the reason why I say that is because uh, I'm the chair of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus. There
Hmm.
are more African Americans in Texas than any other state. African Americans have been energized since Kamala Harris was the Democratic nominee. There was no enthusiasm with President Biden. And in fact, there were a lot of people who were going to sit it out. There were a lot of people who were going to undervote. There were a lot of people who just weren't excited about it. So voter enthusiasm is way up. And that leads into what you were asking about. I was at several debate watch parties to see the excitement. It was it was great to see people with a whole different mindset from the last debate where President Biden was a disaster, where he was a kind of asleep at the wheel, where he stuttered, and not just he stuttered, but he really froze, and he was very lethargic. And we saw a person who couldn't clearly get his thoughts out. Well, we saw just the opposite. Kamala Harris was sharp. She had zingers. She took it to Trump, and Trump was the one that was on the ropes. He was the one that seemed like a feeble old man that needed to go home and retire. So I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm, but Santita, you're right. You have to caution that with most Americans, it didn't change their perception of the race. It is still neck and neck. This race is going to come down to a few critical battleground states, along with independents, and whether or not we as Democrats, I'm a proud Democrat, can turn out our base, particularly of young voters, African American voters, Hispanics. A lot of them are voting for Trump. I'm just going to be
Mhm.
keep it real with you. Can we get more of these black men? I'm here at the Congressional Black Caucus. Just saw your brother, Congressman Jackson, and was excited to see him. But we know that we have to change the mindset and get more African American men that have shifted back home to vote for Kamala and then down ballot. And so, yes, our work isn't done. That's why I'm very excited to have folks like Daryl and Barbara Armwan on the front line with
Mhm.
Transformative Justice Coalition, not advocating for candidates, but getting out the vote in key demographic areas that far too often the Democratic Party has taken for granted. And so we have a unique opportunity to have a first African American speaker in Hakeem Jeffries,
Mhm.
another African American woman in the United States Senate, and many down ballot races. And Satita, finally, you're right. It's the state legislatures that are down ballot that are going to make the difference. Yes, we're excited about the presidential race, but don't forget those state races in your respective states across the country that will determine whether we have DEI, whether we have critical race theory, banning books, extreme abortion bans, climate initiatives, criminal justice reform, and so much more. And so I'm praying that people will wake up, that they will be energized, that we will elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but more importantly, down ballot is where the rubber meets the road. So I'm enthusiastic, but you're right. When you go in the grocery store, you talk to the regular voter, they may have a little enthusiasm, but for them, this debate didn't change a whole lot.
Well, and I think we have to be mindful of the fact that Donald Trump significantly increased his vote totals in 2020 from 2020, well, in 2020 from 2016 by more than 10 million.
That's right.
His popularity grew and it has grown. And the reason Daryl, I say this, Ariel, Dr. Latrice, Theo Hardiman, you got to be honest about where we are. That's the only way we can get from where we are now to where we want to be. That's why I'm like, wait a minute. That's why I try not to come from a place of judgment when I'm talking to people. Yeah, Tio, I get excited. But the thing is, I do respect where everybody is. I
Right.
do. But number one, I want to know where you are and why you're there. And that's fine with me. It's fine with me. But because we've got to open up this discussion, Ariel, because what we're doing is censoring people. And that's not good. It's making people angry. It's making people angry. And I've just heard more than enough times people say, just in a reaction to that, well, I'm going to vote this way because I didn't like the way you did that. So what about the debate? Kamala Harris performed magnificently. That having been said, I didn't think that one debate was going to do it. I thought it was going to help to open the door, though, because it helps people to see her in another way. Number one, it helps people to see her, right? So, and she was very assertive. She walked out to him and shook his hand, Kamala Harris, and she let him know that she was ready. But just what do you make of this? I mean, because the race is still tied. And Debbie Dingle did, when I saw her in this key state of Michigan, when I saw her say, you know what, hold up, wait a minute. I'm an enthusiastic supporter, but I'm telling you, I'm listening to people. They're not hostile to her, but they're not convinced. Ariel Gold.
Yeah. Um,
It's a
well,
lot. It's a
yeah, and I think this is part of why we're even hearing in the news that, there's some flatlining here, right? There's a
a
petering
plateau.
out of enthusiasm because
Mhm.
also let's just say the bar was so low. We were, with Biden as our candidate. Honestly, when Biden was our candidate, I was just resigning myself to another Trump term. So there was so much relief, among other things. It wasn't just joy; it was framed as joy, but at least for me, it was a lot of relief when when Biden stepped aside and Kamala became the candidate. But we do need more, right? And this is a really close election. And this is a really close election against somebody that it's hard to know where to start with him. What he said about Haitian immigrants and, January 6th and on and on and on and on. And so we need more. We should have more. We should have really attractive policy positions that she
Mhm.
should be putting forth. And, I guess we just keep asking for it. We just keep asking for it and pushing for it, just like we're going to have to ask and push once she, knock on wood, is in office.
Well, Chaparral said she needs to speak on Gaza. She needs the Palestinian voters to win. I mean, because the fact is, it this look, 2020 was a once in a lifetime thing. I got to get Trump out. But even with that, I repeat, this man increased his vote totals by an enormous amount. So, I mean, and if we don't analyze people and analyze why they are who they are, and why people like them, why people embrace them, because of your candidate is your Rorschach test. We project onto them what it is that we want, not necessarily who they are. When we have got, that's the only way I think we're going to be able to move the needle, Daryl Jones. You got to be honest about what people want more of, because the uncommitted vote is out there. I mean, and I can't help but believe that the uncommitted vote is bigger than 800,000 people, because uncommitted started out of the ether. It just came about, and people were looking for an alternative during the primary season, and they might still, and a lot of people still are. A lot of people still are. I mean, I'm surprised at the number of undecideds. I think that's what kind of, you know what I mean, Ron? I mean, that's what kind of throws me. I'm like, whoa. But people haven't seen enough, because this one was like a surprise candidacy, Attorney Daryl Jones. I mean, instead of having the open convention that some people wanted, where you would have had, an array of candidates, you got her, which was, hey, I didn't like the process, but I do like her.
And
Um, but Daryl, I mean, we're tied. How can we got to break this tie?
I mean, the tie is going to be broken, right? Eventually, somebody's going to win. But this is the piece that I think that people are dancing around. That I think people are dancing around.
Hmm.
What we're dealing with is not simply two candidates that are tied, although that's a part of it. I think that what we're grappling with right now is what it means to be Black and a woman in America running for the presidency. I mean, I don't think that when you look at the numbers, if you look at the racism and the misogyny that's at play, that's what's key here to try
Oh, okay.
to try to understand and get a hold of why the numbers haven't moved. Why is it that had she not performed twice as well as former President Trump, that she hasn't moved? Had she performed equal to him, she would be down in the polls. No question, she'd be down in the polls. So what is it that is the contributing factor that has her perform so excessively well, but not be able to move the numbers? And I think that you start pointing and understanding and appreciating the racism that's in America. That they don't say, I'm not going to support her because she's a black. I'm not going to support her because she's a woman. They say, I don't think I've got enough policy from her. I haven't heard the policy pieces that I want to hear. Well, what policy piece did you hear from former President Trump? You didn't hear anything. Okay. At any point in time, were you hearing policy pieces from him? So,
but wait a minute. But he's walking policy, because of what he represents. The fact is, and let's engage for a minute, because the fact is the bar is much higher. When I think of Jackie Robinson dying in 1972, I want everybody to Google what he looked like in 1972. He was only 53. He looked like a worn out 93. His diabetes had advanced so that he was completely blind. He had lost a son to drug addiction and Vietnam, and quite frankly, from carrying the weight of being Jackie Robinson Jr. He had been told when he was starting this great American experiment, because we forget, this is before the NFL was ubiquitous. Baseball was it in America. So when Branch Rickey told him, look, we chose you because you already faced a court-martial at the most racist base in America, because you refused to move to the back of the bus. You're tough, man. And the first four-letter man at UCLA, you got all the stuff. But what you're about to step into right now is the ugliest. We're still lynching Black people in America. You're not going to be able to stay in the hotel with your teammates, and you're not going to be able to hit back. That'll take years off your life. And it did. But the bar is still exceptionally high for people, because even Barack Obama had a completely favorable press. They deified him. That's what saved him. Because had he been treated, because his first debate didn't go well, Ariel and Dr. Latrice and T.O. Hardeman. Had he not been put in a shroud, he would have been catching hell too. Yes, I said it. We're gonna wait for Daryl to get back, but I want you, T.O.
Yeah.
Why don't you
what I'd like to say is I watched the entire debate and also read all the information you sent to me, Santita, this time, okay? The reality, I think...
Wait a minute, I just send you all articles and suggestions. I
just want to make sure I read everything this time, okay? To do my own research. So the reality is this here. I believe Trump could have did a better job if he did not exaggerate the numbers. He's talking about the Haitian people eating animals. He was deflecting a lot of the real issues to a degree. And then in reality, now it's coming out that the United States attorney in New York kind of like stacked charges up against Donald Trump. That's out in the news right now, whether it's been proven or not. It's just out there in the universe, right? Kamala Harris did a real good job. I believe that she has the momentum swinging in her direction, but at the same time, it's a virtual tie. There's been a Republican pollster that put out there that Kamala Harris is up around 1 or 2 points. Then there's been some polls done that Trump is up 1 point. So now what you said early on, Santita, is that Trump gained another 10 million supporters, whatever the case may be. So let's look at the numbers.
4 years ago.
I know what you're talking about. So let's say Kamala stated during the debate that they won about 81. They had 81 million votes, right? Trump 75 million. So if Trump gained some more million of supporters, that's what's making it a dead heat, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to come. I wish they would have another debate and both candidates go back and analyze the way they presented on this first debate and come back a little bit stronger in different areas, because Trump put so many numbers out there, exaggerating numbers all the time. And Kamala, she has a wealth of experience being the attorney general. She's the vice president. But one thing Trump has in his background, he served as a president before. So if he wins or not, he's already been the president. So I think it was a very positive, to a degree, swinging with Kamala Harris. I want to make that clear. But Trump has to go to the drawing board, because it shouldn't be a dead heat. But a blast from the past, Santita. My president is Jesse Jackson Sr. I just want to put that out there. I'm not saying it because I'm on your show. That's my president, all right? But the reality is this here. I'm looking forward to a real strong race coming down to the wire, but I just hope they do agree to one final debate sometime in October. And I think that would make a big difference. I really believe it would if everybody go back to the drawing board and present those policies in a stronger way, because you still have a lot of issues out there from both sides. People want to know what Donald Trump stands with an abortion ban, a nationwide abortion ban. He never answered that question directly, right? And women vote a lot more than men. So let's look at it for what it's worth, right?
But you know what?
Yeah.
He is, remember, Donald Trump has never been a true right winger, Ariel Gold.
Right. I understand.
He did this, and I follow Roger Stone, who's been one of his persons, right?
Right.
Roger Stone told him when he first broached the idea seriously of running, because he's talked about it for years, for decades. Oprah even asked him about that in the 80s on her show, when he was just becoming a very well-known realtor, real estate developer in New York. And I thought that was interesting. I said, so he's in their line of vision now. I saw this.
Yeah. But we just have
and
to
understood it. But what was interesting
yeah.
was he was going to run under the Reform Party, which was Ross Perot's party. He has always been, he's never been this right-wing awful guy. That's why when people have asked Reverend about him, he's like, I don't recognize this guy, because my dealings with him have been very different. Roger Stone said, you have the power to bust up this duopoly, the two-party system, because your politics are really down the middle. You're transactional, you're a businessman, you got friends from every conceivable background, they like you, blah, blah, blah. You work with people. He said, my profound disappointment is that he took the low-hanging fruit and he ran with white nationalists. That's important because, remember, Hillary got the standard Democrats and the women. Because this is 2015, 2016.
Exactly.
Bernie came out of nowhere and got all the progressives. He got what was left. I'm not saying it's right, y'all. I'm just saying, in order for us to really get our arms around this, we have to examine this. And in 2020, people wanted him out. Okay? Pandemic, blah, 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 blah. Now, people are not going to do anybody but in 2024, which makes it, I think, makes it tougher for Kamala Harris. Doesn't make it impossible.
Right.
I think, what I'm trying to do as we tease all of this out today is find out how we get from impossible to I'm possible to let's make this work. You know what I'm saying? Like, but Tio, that's why I was just trying to frame it for you.
No, I just want to say it's going to come down to the Electoral College, and we'll see what happens there. But if the election was held today, I do believe Kamala Harris has the edge, but it remains to be seen. And I just want to put this out there in a positive way. This election kind of reminds me of back during the Civil War, like when you had a big divide in our country. It's a divided nation. I mean, the presidential politics of year 2024, we have a divided nation right now. And that's what this race is about. How can we bring people over to the other side and to support, because I'm more neutral right now. I'm not putting out there who I support, but the thing is, it's a divided nation. But that gives Trump an edge to a degree.
Has he moved the needle with black men?
Well, he's moved the needle a little. Now, Kamala Harris actually took that. Kamala, my fault. That's right. Kamala Harris. I got you. She took that from him. This came out of nowhere. Trump was at 7% with black men in the black community before Mrs. Harris joined the race, right? And then he went to 21%. Now he's all back almost to zero. In the state of Michigan, there was a poll taken. He may not check out the numbers. Check out the number, Santita. They may have fluctuated here or there, but in the state of Michigan, they're saying he may not receive one African American vote out of the state of Michigan recently, because the reality, he was winning. He was winning African American people over. But I'm sure he's going to get a nice amount of votes out of the African-American community from black men and some African-American women. I've seen a lot of social media posts out there. They've been going viral with women saying they're supporting Donald Trump and men. So it remains to be seen. So he might have enough votes to swing it over, possibly. All right. But let's say hypothetically, Mrs. Harris, her administration, they secure let's say 85, 87 million votes. And Trump has to come in. But if you look at the information you sent me, I don't believe Trump ever surpassed 47%, something like that. The Electoral College, kicks in. It comes into play.
Yeah, but you know what? They keep saying that, but you know what? He is strong in the flyover states.
Yes, no doubt. I agree with you.
You know, I mean, because
That's right.
that, I mean, and people keep, for heaven's sake, everybody, Ariel, Dr. Latrice, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, Tio Hardiman. Let's look at what the man did right,
Yeah.
so you can figure out, you know, someone, Barbara Walters, my heavens, of all people, asked Lady Bird Johnson, and I thought it was so rude at the time, but I learned a lot. Um, a lot of women, to put it charitably, loved LBJ, her husband, powerful man. You know, I mean, and that is what Henry Kissinger said. You know, power is the greatest aphrodisiac, and it's true. You know, so a man who can pick up the phone for you and make the world move on. Oh my gosh, you know, help you with whatever, whatever, whatever. And Barbara Walters asked her, basically, how did you deal with your husband and all these women? She said in her most ladylike tone, she said, if my husband, she said, I can understand why the women loved Lyndon because I loved him too. She said, so what I did was look at a woman for whom my husband had a particular admiration. Oh, Ariel, she was masterful. She said, and you know what? I would take that which he liked so much and I'd adopt it for myself. I said, this woman, I was about 12 or 13 when I saw it. I thought I was watching it with my mother. I said, oh, she said, oh no, she's tough. In order to survive in this space, that's what she has to be. I mean, Tio, I mean, I'm not just trying to continue to interrupt. I'm just, you know, I like to
No,
engage.
we're good. We're good.
So, you know, that's why I was asking you about Black men, because you have a tremendous presence with Black men in Chicago. And just to ask you, like, what are you hearing? Because I'm still hearing some people who haven't moved.
Well, let me say this. A lot of African American men definitely support Trump, I must admit, as far as the people that I talk to. And the reason why it's not so much that they're against Mrs. Harris, the Democratic Party, and to a degree, I'm not going to, when I'm talking to people, what they tell me, has failed the Black community on a lot of different levels. Mm-hmm. That's the mindset, the perceptions out there. When you look at Baltimore, you look at New Orleans, you look at Memphis, you look at Chicago, Detroit, the inner cities are still like ghetto areas, and nothing has moved the needle in regards to lifting people up the way that some people see it. And in some cases, African-American men feel that the Republican Party would be better suited to help the African-American community rebuild itself here or there. That doesn't mean it's going to happen that way, but those are some of the perceptions out there with African-American men. I must admit, because I've talked to a whole lot of people from both sides of the equation. So somebody has to fix that on the Democratic side, where people can believe the fact that Democrats will be held accountable and they will really bring the much needed resources to the African American community. I spoke about this before because I come out the heart of the ghetto. I want to make that clear. The reality is that we need so much help in some of our inner city areas. Our communities, the way we support Democrats, our community should be looking like some oases somewhere, you know, here even in Dallas. I've been a Dallas representative there. I've traveled to Fort Worth, you know, different places throughout San Antonio and all those different places. We just need a lot of, I'm not saying nobody needs to just give us anything, but we need help in our communities with small businesses. Now,
No. We need to be treated fairly.
There you go.
The capital of Black business for Black America, for America, was Chicago.
Yes.
You had Independence Bank. You had all these Black. You had Southside Bank. You had all. We don't have them anymore. We don't have Black-owned banks. We don't have our Black-owned businesses. I want to be treated fairly. I don't want another bomb dropped on me. It's like a la. Wait a minute, John Rogers of Ariel, the founder of Ariel Capital. The whole Hilton chain is modeled on what his grandfather built in Tulsa. The hotel that his family built was so splendid, so magnificent. The Hilton family studied it. And that is the basis upon the Hilton chain today. Okay. But they dropped a bomb on that. So the generational, as wealthy as John is today, the generational wealth that he and his mother, who was the Deputy Solicitor General of the United States, they were chased out of Tulsa. And then they tried to charge his granddaddy with starting all of this.
Yes.
So Santita,
your response.
I was going to say, in addition to what Tio was saying.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. In addition to what Tio was saying, I think an abundance of Black men are also voting for Trump, because they have identified that they feel like the Black community has been left out of the democratic process. So they've targeted the Black communities. They've gone to the Black communities to try to make promises to people, and people are feeling like, well, they're showing us attention, like they care. And so that's making people think, okay, I need to be over here with this party. I'm not saying I'm with either party. I'm not even going to sit here and tell a tale like that. What I'm saying is, I can see things both positive and negative on both sides. And so therefore it causes me not to want to be on one side or the other. What I will say is, we as Black people need to stop allowing people just to pump us up when they need us. We need to be consistent and hold people accountable throughout the entire process. And also, when we're voting down on the ballot, let's come into familiarity with who our judges are, who our state reps are, who it's like it's so many other pieces to the puzzle. The debate for me was not anything that I gravitated to, a winner or a loser. I could not tell you. I would think that she held her own as far as the talking points, but I do believe that there were hardly no issues really talked about. And I was in a room with 99% of Kamala supporters. I had a couple of people that were in there who were Trump supporters, and I'm gonna tell you, people were just hyped up because Kamala was on the screen. They weren't even listening. They were talking so loud and so happy that they felt like she was talking normal enough to get Trump, that nobody even paid attention to. What did we really learn? What did they talk about? Did they go over any real policies? I heard fracking mentioned about 7 times. So I left there saying, this has left me in the same position.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Santita,
Yeah.
Santita, I just wanted to respond really quickly. Not being defensive or anything, but just keeping it real and being, transparent. There's a lot of BS, a lot of misnomers that are out there about Kamala, like, oh, she locked up all these Black men, when that wasn't true. So a lot of it has to be debunked. Or,
She's
Trump,
got to speak to it.
absolutely, she
I
does.
agree.
She has to speak to it. But the fact that there's been so much misinformation, and I want people to realize that there is a lot of bots out there. There's a lot of AI. There's a lot of trolls who are perpetuating false information to cast aspersions so that people feel like, well, they're both corrupt, they're both this, and that's a form of voter suppression. So we as trusted messengers have a responsibility to get the truth out there, because recently we heard Tyrese, and I'm a fan of Tyrese, go on with some nonsense that was debunked. We've had other people that have went on there that's saying and repeating. Now I got to give it, to D.L. Hughley, who went on national stage and said, hey, I perpetuated lies because I didn't do my research. Once I did my research, and he said, hey, I'm here to apologize. I made a mistake. Most people don't own up. Like this nonsense that Trump talked about, these Haitians eating dogs and cats. We got to be real and wake up and start speaking truth to power. So Santita, part of the problem is that sometimes we have a tendency to try to say, hey, the moral equivalence of both sides. Yeah, the Democratic Party has taken Black folks for granted, but the Republican Party hasn't given us much of anything at all either. So I can tell you that I feel more comfortable with having a seat at the table than being on someone's menu. And that's all I'm saying. So we have to have those conversations, but I think it's a legitimate point that you make about what has Democrats done, what has Kamala Harris done. That there should be deliverables, and we can't just go based on, oh, she's Black or she's Democrat. She does have an incredible record, and she has to tell that story, and her surrogates and other people have to tell that story.
And where there were failures, because the system is, Attorney Darrell Jones, and you've been a prosecutor, the system is what it is. Part of the reason her campaign did not do well, it failed in 2020, was because of that. Because there are a lot of people in California who are still angry because they were disadvantaged. There were some things that she could have, that she needs to say, I'm sorry. Not the system was this. I was learning that there's just a lot. If she, I mean, she is the one who's going to have to take this role. She's got to do it. And I think that if she does it, I think it could go a long way, because police reform, prison reform, sentencing reform, that's a big deal, because I don't know a Black family that's not touched by this. And now and brown families, and increasingly white families. We're the incarceration nation, increasingly for everybody. Attorney Daryl Jones, we lost you for a hot second, my dear.
You may lose me for a second, but you can't lose me long. Look, I agree with you wholeheartedly with regards to what Vice President Harris has to do in dealing with her background of being a prosecutor. Part of the issue right now is the time frame that we have to get this done, that she has to get this done. There's not a lot of time. And so, she's going to be relying on surrogates in that area. What happened, I think, with Vice President Harris during the 2020 period, when she was running and everything else, I think that when you're looking at, if we're looking at that snapshot in time, I think that part of the thing that we have to remember, and it must be remembered at that point, is that you were looking at an attack on progressive Black prosecutors. You were looking at the attack on Marilyn Mosby. You were looking at the attack on Kim Foxx. You were looking at the attack on all these Black women prosecutors that were in the country. And Vice President Harris was caught up in that attack, and all the other stuff that was being laid out there about defunding the police and all of that. All of that became part of what she was being hit by at that point in time. But today...
But Daryl, she had also done some things that were very pleasing to the right. What people don't realize is that California is a really, I'll just say, it's a very interesting state, because it is the state that gave us Reagan and Maxine Waters and Willie Brown. It tilts real right. It tilts real left. It tilts real progressive. It tips real Orange County, and quite frankly, and it's real rainbow. And she had to run with all of that. I think we, as we're teasing this out and what she's had to run up against, it's not just the most populous state, it's the most diverse. And I don't mean just racially and ethnically, philosophically. You got to remember, this is the state where the mayor of Los Angeles, Tom Bradley, almost became governor 40 years ago. He was leading in the polls, but was it Pete Wilson who decided to run ads with his picture the weekend before the election? Remember that? And oh yeah, he did. It was real smooth, and it cost him the election. Now this was 40 years ago. But Daryl, that's politics, but that's how they were. That's what she has had to run and govern in that context. Because even San Francisco, as far to the left as it tilts, it's also one of the wealthiest enclaves in the world.
Right, and I think it's that experience,
right?
Yeah, no, I think it's that experience that she's come from, and the diversity politically and philosophically that she's come from, that has enabled her to be in the position that she's in right now. It's a very unique position that Vice President Harris holds. And yeah, there are going to be people that don't like her because she's a prosecutor, and that's going to be the end of it. She's a prosecutor. I'm not going to support a prosecutor. And there are going to be people that that are going to question: has she gone far enough with regards to prosecution? What has she done enough to make communities feel safe? But the other part that I think that we don't want to miss is this. We tend to really scrub here what Vice President Harris is doing, and some of the hurdles that she has to overcome. But you also have to remember the hurdles that former President Trump has to overcome. We see defections from the Republicans from former President Trump. So, this is, when it comes to the general election, it's all about your base and getting your base out. And we are seeing some defections from that Republican base. Yeah, there's that 39% that's not going anywhere for him, but that's not what's going to win the election for him. What he will have to do is hold that 39 together and then start adding. Who is he going to add? He's going to have to add those Republicans that are moderate, that are watching this. He's going to have to win the battle over independents. And I'm not certain that, given what we're seeing right now, that he's going to win that battle. And so if you don't see Vice President Harris moving, far or progressively with regards to Gaza, with regards to positions on Israel. Part of it, I think, is going to be that she doesn't want to alienate that piece of the voters. She wants to walk that tightrope where she's saying, I'm going to listen to all sides and I want to bring this to a peaceful resolution where there's the two-state solution. But at the same time, she doesn't want to go too far that because it's this 49-49 split that's there, of losing voters, of losing any support, and thus losing the presidency and not having the opportunity to make the impactful type of change that I think she'll make should she be elected. Santita, that's just the political side of trying to get the numbers to get to the piece of being the president and running again. And I've continued to say, and I think that Tio is right on the mark with regard to Black men. But you've also got to deal with the misogyny part of that, because there are many Black men that don't want a woman to be the president and in charge of telling people what to do.
Well, and these white men, when I saw her getting off the plane, speaking to the military, there's not a woman among them who's in leadership. Misogyny and sexism is very real. That having been said, you got to figure out how to deal with it. You got to figure out how to overcome it.
Right.
Because you know what? Now we can't even. I hear you. You're right. But this is the hand that she was dealt. This is what we got to deal with. Boom. Now you got to figure out your way around it. The Reverend Jackson I grew up with, he had to become more political in '84, and then in '88 when he became the front runner. It was different, and it became very difficult for us. I'm not gonna lie, because we're from the church, and we're movement people, and that's very pure. Politics is a whole different deal, and so try not to lose yourself while you're trying to hold on to your principles while you're being political is very tough. It's very hard. That's why she's got to talk to people who've done it, because other people have been in the zip code before.
But Santita, Mrs. Sayers can redeem herself with the Black male vote if she just would own that issue that comes out of the state of California. And if any suggestion I could give to the Democratic Party, stop trying to run all these perfect candidates all the time, because what's gaining momentum for Donald Trump is what you see is what you get. He's not.
Wait a minute. You're making a brilliant point.
I'm just being straight up with everybody.
He tells you,
right.
Boom, this is who I am.
Democrats, they want to just put these candidates up there like they just on script all the time. They never did nothing wrong. Trump he's non-filtered. I'm not saying the Democrats should run people that are non-filtered all the way, but just present who you are. Don't try to hold back. Just be straight up. People like that sometimes. Even though Donald Trump has been convicted, some people like that kind of stuff. It makes them more human, more identifiable to some people.
Baby, no. With all these unconvicted felons out
here. I said to some people, Santita, not to everybody.
No, I'm with you. No, I'm saying many of these presidents need to be in jail. They've committed war crimes.
Yes.
Cut it out. People don't care about that anymore.
There you go.
We have had Monica Lewinsky. We don't believe Oswald killed Kennedy. Sirhan, even Robert Kennedy's son, said, look, the kill shot was over his ear.
There you go.
Sirhan was in front of him. There have been so many lives. People are over it, y'all. And people are looking, who can afford to send their child to the University of Chicago or Columbia? That's $100,000 a year. Are you for real? People are not even, 40 years ago when I went to school, people stopped going to the Ivy League, even though my group had been accepted into it. You want to know why? Because you got better deals at state schools. You got better deals at HBCUs. I was talking to a friend of mine one of our dearest friends got married. He said, we kind of started a wave. I was like, what do you mean? He said, we pushed back against the Ivies. And we went to Howard. We went to Jackson State. We went to Spelman. We went to Morehouse. We went to A&T. You were getting the better packages. People are tired of Teal's making a brilliant point, y'all. People want that which is authentic. I'm not saying a felon. I mean, look, I'm saying a lot of people have records, or they have someone who they love who's had a record. And if you're not gonna let somebody reform, what's all this about, Alfie? So I'm just saying I've got to run over, because I've got Dr. Cornel West waiting in the backstage in the next hour. So everybody stay tuned, because everybody said Where is he? Where is he? He's over there, and I've got to get over to him. So I'm going to get a quick something. And Tio, we're going to and y'all, we're going to talk about what's happening with these men, Ariel, and maybe we'll just sit backstage. Not quite. You just got to we just got to sit there with you and look. But we want to hear what's on the mind of men. And I mean black men, but I want to hear from men because all y'all stick together. You play on teams. You do all. I mean, Ariel, they do. They've been socialized that way. You have been. Women have not. I mean, white men, I've seen white men who don't want you in their neighborhood, but they got to have you on their team. And eventually they want you in their neighborhood because that's my boy. I mean, that's one of the things my father said he loved about Jack Kemp. Remember him? He said, I get the sense, because they had come out of the segregated era, that he learned something from his experiences with his black friends. And he did. You could see he had walked through the looking glass. And that's all I can ask. I'm not asking you not to be a product of your culture. I'm asking you to get over it, though. How about that? So everybody, I'm going to have to run. We're going to have to run a little early today. But when I say like 10 seconds, like bye-bye, I'm going to have to do that because I got to go get over to Cornell West. Keo Hardeman.
I'll make it quick. In the words of legendary blues singer Lattimore, let's straighten it out. That's all we want to do. Let's straighten it out. And Ariel, I love the name of your organization, Fellowship of Reconciliation, because we definitely need to reconcile. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, Santita.
To tell you more about our
She's married, Tio.
We are.
No, I'm not trying to hit her.
Dr. King liked the name of our organization.
That's right.
Too, and I had his membership card on my office wall.
That's right. Let's straighten it out. That's right.
Yeah, I had to give that to you, Tio. I had to just jab a little bit.
Hey.
Daryl, I had to give it to him. Because I just let you know.
Yeah, very quick and simple, Santita. I just urge people to go to vote.org. Be certain that you're registered to vote. Be certain that you know where you're going to cast your ballot and that you're registered and you haven't been purged. Now is the time to do that. Now is the time to make the plan on how you're going to vote, what way you're going to vote, when you're going to vote, and then go ahead and cast that vote when the time comes.
Dr. Latrice, a couple of seconds.
Those of us who are still on the fence of which way we're going with this, I just urge you all to do your research, become educated, and commend that these candidates really come out and speak to the issues that we're concerned with. That's it. That's all.
Ariel.
Well, I want to say the same thing, and they're not contradictory. You know, if you look at, well, first of all, let's look at Jewish voters. She's not going to lose more, maybe a handful of Jewish Americans. We vote on domestic. And if you poll Jewish Americans, the majority of us want a ceasefire. And of course, it's not just the Arab American vote, it's the youth vote, it's people of color. Folks want a ceasefire. And let's be frank, there is one way to make that happen, and that's withholding those weapons from Netanyahu. And it can be done carefully. She can thread that needle. She can say, I'm not saying I'd leave them on their own. Look, in the U.S., we've got assets all over the place in the Middle East. We will defend them if Iran attacks. I'm not talking about not refilling the Iron Dome. I'm talking about offensive weapons. The weapons that are killing people in Gaza, they're killing the children, and they're killing the hostages. And I think she could make a real win from it.
Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, I got to go see Cornell.
In the words of my forever First Lady, do something.
I love it. Everybody go to the second hour. I'm going to Cornell West. I got to talk to him about running for president. Love y'all. See you in D.C.
See you in D.C.
Ron.
All right. See you soon.
Bye-bye.